Hopefully this is working. Can you guys hear me out on that end? So it looks like somebody else has popped into the mix. I didn't actually plan anything to talk about this week. I just figured I'd answer any questions people had. So if you just want to throw questions in the chat box, I'll answer them as they come through. Hello. Hopefully you guys can hear me. For some reason this is lagging. Can you hear me now? Happy Tuesday to you as well. Hopefully this is working. What would you like to know? Besides the fact that I'm not good at changing them. I've never noticed color codes on the C-clips. Are you talking about the ones that are already in the truck or the new ones? Because we usually get them straight from Toyota, and the C-clips are just black colored. I've never noticed a different color code on them. I would assume maybe it's different thicknesses to get the spacing right, but I've never actually paid attention to it. Yeah, the ones, if they're the ones in the truck and they're factory, maybe they changed C-clip sizes to set the preload on the U-joints. But the new ones, I've never seen them have different colors on them. It's just a set of um, 4 C-clips per U-joint, and they all look the same. But I normally make Danny do all the U-joint changes because when I do them, I have to order 3 U-joints to change 2 because I usually end up mangling one. He's got a better track record of doing them than I do. Yeah, I hate doing U-joints, and we're seeing more and more of them lately. Luckily, a lot of the times the slip joints are worn out enough in the drive shafts that it makes more sense to just get a new drive shaft than to change the U-joints. So that's the way I cheat and get around changing them. Um, but yeah, I don't like changing U-joints. Uh, Check the slip joints too. We've been seeing a lot more 80 series that have uh, a lot of wear in the slip joints, and when you go from throttle to coast, you'll hear a lot of rumble noise um, coming out of them. A lot of times, if they're not super bad, you can grease the slip joint and make it better, if not eliminate it. But we've had quite a few lately that have been bad enough that they needed new drive shafts because the slip joints were so sloppy. And I usually order the factory Toyota U-joints. They seem to last a lot longer and hold up better than the ones you get at the parts store. Shift from reverse into drive. I guess that could be either. It could be U-joint play, or it could be play in the drive shaft, slip joint itself. It's hard to narrow it down on an 80 because they're full-time four-wheel drive. So usually when you park it, there's still load on the drive shafts. So what I'll usually do is park it and jack up, like say like one rear tire, get it off the air, get it off the ground rather, and that'll unload the drivetrain enough that you can actually like, grab the drive shaft and see where the play is. Grab the U-joints and shake them, grab the slip joint and shake them, and see where your play and where your slop is. Because when all four tires are on the ground, a lot of times there won't be any play because it's still got tension on the drive shaft. And check both drive shafts. I've gotten tricked more than once thinking the sound was coming from the front. It was actually the back, or vice versa. And then check the front, jack one front tire up in the air. Same deal. Usually, usually it's not. Usually, you're not going to hear excessive backlash, although you could have it. We don't see it a lot. What we normally see is worn pinion bearings, and they let the pinion walk in and out on the pattern, and you'll hear that as like a whine that changes pitch when you go from drive to coast. Like when you're loaded, it'll sound normal, and then as you go to coast, it'll whine, or vice versa. And it's the pinion bearing letting everything walk around. I can't say that I've actually taken apart a Toyota gear set that had actual too much backlash. But a sloppy pinion bearing will give you the same kind of effect because as it moves around, it'll increase and decrease the backlash. But you can actually check that at the same time, as you've got like a tire up in the air, feeling the U-joints. You can grab the pinion flange and try to wiggle it, up and down and in and out. And if they're real bad, you can feel it rotationally. You'll feel the pinion suck in and out. And every now and then we get them that the pinion nut itself is loose, and you can just move the pinion nut back to the stake mark, and that'll take care of it. But most of the time, it's bad bearings. And we're starting to see more and more pinion bearings coming through. Um, we probably do a bad pinion bearing every month or two. Um, we don't do a lot of automatic transmission work here. Um, we'll drain and fill the transmissions. As far as like in-depth actual transmission repair, I haven't gotten into it. I've done solenoids in them and kicked down cables, but I've never actually pulled one apart. Um, I've got I've got an auto trans out of an FJ62 here that we replaced it with another used unit, and I've been toying with the idea of ordering a rebuild kit for it and going through it, um, just for the learning experience. I had a Suburban eons ago and rebuilt the 700R4 in it, and I was successful at it, but it took me forever, um, and it was a pain. So I kind of like vowed that I would never do automatic transmissions again. Um, but I'm starting to see some need for actually being able to rebuild them, and we don't have a rebuilder locally that will do them. So I may toy with it in the future. Um, but so far I haven't. Um, I got some of the aftermarket manuals on them, but I haven't actually opened one up to go through it. Like I've taken auto trans, like the one auto trans, I've taken it apart, I've put it back together. Um, I couldn't tell you how the valve body actually works. Fluid goes in, magic happens, power comes out. I understand the mechanics of it, but not how it actually decides what it's doing. So I guess long story short, yeah, mostly we just do fluid changes on them. Luckily, we haven't had much need to replace them. I think we had one in a 96 that we thought we were going to need to replace because it had all kinds of weird shifting issues. And it turned out the wiring harness uh, that comes down to the intake and then runs over the top of the bell housing, it had chafed against the floor and was randomly shorting out the shift solenoids. So we luckily found the bad chunk of harness and fixed that up, and it was fine ever since. But yeah, I should get around to getting a rebuild kit for the one we've got sitting here on the floor. Since it is sitting on the floor and we keep tripping on it, might as well go through it and see what we can do. It's just one of those, never seems to be time to play with things like that. I don't know that I've ever heard weird noises coming from the transmission of the torque converter. You might see if you can find somebody local that has a set of chassis ears. It's a set of microphones with clamps on them, and you clamp them onto whatever you think is making noise. I think our set has 5 or 6 microphones. But you clamp them on, and then they go into a mixer, and you drive around with headphones on, and you change the channels on the mixer, and you can figure out where the noise is, which microphone the noise is coming from loudest, and then you can keep shuffling the mics around until you've narrowed down where the actual noise is coming from. And I don't think they're horribly expensive, like to even buy a set. I think the wired ones are less than $100 or right around $100. It's one of those tools, we don't use them often, but when you need them, they're a lifesaver. I actually need to go through and replace some of the microphones on mine. The cords have gotten chewed up from dragging against things underneath the trucks. So I need to get new microphones. They have a wireless set also, but from everything I've read, the wireless ones get a lot of static on them. So it's harder to pinpoint, are you hearing static or are you hearing a weird engine noise? Yeah, it's like an automotive stethoscope, and they actually have a stethoscope version of it too, with it's like a long rod on the end, and you can poke around in the engine to see like idler bearings and stuff that are making noise. That's what we used to use. I use a thermal imaging camera now, and you just look at the front of the engine while it's running and look for the hot pulley. So that makes that easier. But we've got the stethoscope version of the chassis ears also. It doesn't get used that often. Well, if you have even the wired version of the chassis ears, the leads on them are like 15 or 20 feet long. So you wire them up under the truck and drive around, and then they get all knotted up in a big bunch, and you throw them in the cabinet until you need them again. The wireless ones, I think, are like at least a couple $100. I've never actually played with them because everybody I know has got the wired set. What's it? They make a set that runs through your smartphone also. It's just like a single clamp-on lead. It's like one clamp-on pickup and then the stethoscope pickup. And I think it's the Steelman chassis one. Let me go grab it because I've got that one too. Yeah, so they've got, it's like the Steelman Smart Ear 1, and then it's got various attachments. Like there's this clamp on pickup, and then a stethoscope one, and then the stethoscope one goes on this like microphone thing. But those all, it's got an adapter and it plugs into your smartphone and runs through their app. And the cool thing with these, let's see if I can get this out of here. And I've got the Matco version, but Steelman makes it. But it's when you've got it on the smartphone, it's got like a visual reference, like a decibel meter. So you can move it around, like when you're using the stethoscope, and I put that too low, but a little decibel meter. When you're moving the stethoscope around different spots, you can see how it registers on the actual decibel meter. And sometimes it makes it easier because you can actually see which spot is louder. So you know when you're getting closer. And I think the Steelman version of the Smart Ear, I think they've got them on Amazon, and they're not terribly priced. And they come in different versions. Again, it's one of those tools. I think I've had, like this set, I've had it for 2 or 3 years, and we've used it 2 or 3 times. But it's super handy when you need it. I've got a problem with being a tool junkie. We have way too many like oddball, you don't use them very often tools. But they sure make life easier those rare times that you do need them. It's an older Land Cruiser. They just make grunts and groans. But that's why I make Danny do most of the test drives. I've had so many just crappy vehicles over the years that I've become immune to rattles, clunks, bangs, loose things. You know, I go on test drives and I'm like, oh yeah, it's just a Land Cruiser. But Danny's more in tune with things and how they should be tight. So he really notices clunks and bangs and rattles and noises that shouldn't be there. So he does all the test drives. Because yeah, he's more sensitive than that than I am. We pulled my 4Runner buggy thing into the shop Friday to mess around with it, and actually got it running. It hasn't run in like 7 or 8 years, and we got it running well enough to drive around the gravel parking lot here at the shop. And it is crazy how many rattles and bangs that thing makes. One of the fenders is about to fall off, so it slaps against the truck as you're driving. Yeah, it's loud and annoying. I had short-lived hopes of actually getting it running well enough to take it up to Coal Mine Cruiser Classic this weekend, but I don't think that's going to happen because we've got enough work here at the shop that I'm not going to have time to actually sit down and make it trail worthy. That and my dad already loaded his 40 on the trailer, so he's taking it up. So parts have fallen off my 4Runner while driving it. The old pit bulls that I had on it were so out of balance that if you got up around 30 miles an hour, it would just start jumping and bucking and swaying, and random stuff fell out of it. And I've had one coil spring fly out of it when I was test driving, and I hadn't put the retainers in yet because I was like, oh, I'm just going for a quick test drive down the road. And I took a corner too hard and launched a coil spring. So yeah, always make sure all your parts are bolted on before you go drive. But that was like 20 years ago before I actually had a shop. We've had more than our fair share of occasions back before everybody had trailers and tow rigs. Of, when we drive our trucks to events, you'd be driving home from like G. Smitter down in Tennessee, and somebody's exhaust would fall off and drill a car behind them, or wheels fly off. It was never a straight trip down and back. Somebody always broke down. I need to make it down to another G. Smitter. I haven't been. I think the last sticker on my 4Runner is 2007 for G. Smitter. So yeah, I need to get back down there. Hello, we got a new person. Yeah, I just need to get out and go wheeling again. Period. My 4Runner hasn't been out in 7 or 8 years. Yeah, I think 2007 or whenever the last time I was there, it was either the last year or the second to the last year when it was actually at Tellico. I've never actually been to Windrock. Sorry, phone's ringing in the background, and I don't know how to quiet it down. So we're going to go stick it under a couch cushion. That's like I think the last time I wheeled at Coal Mine was like '02 when it was still at Paragon. I've never actually wheeled at Roush Creek. I've been there, but I've never actually had my truck there. Yeah, I need to get down there. I think my dad's been there. Yeah, I thought, oh, I'm gonna have a Land Cruiser shop. I'm gonna be able to work on my junk all the time. And yeah, I never have time to work on my stuff. Of course, I also need to get a tow rig and a trailer to make it down there. I don't think my Subaru will tow my 4Runner. Oh, the Subaru gets treated terribly. I go to the steel supplier with it. That's my Home Depot run vehicle. The guys at Toyota were making fun of me because I picked up an H55F 5-speed in it. And they're like, you can't put that in the back of the Subaru. And it's like, yeah, I can. But it's an old Forester that I paid like $200 for. So I'm not really attached to it. But yeah. Yeah, the Otram at otram.com is me. That's the easiest way to get a hold of me also. Awesome. Yeah, other people's videos are always good since I don't ever get out to wheel anymore. Me and Danny might leave out of here early Friday and ride up to Coal Mine. It depends on if I can find anybody to watch my dogs because my wife's out of town too. And I can't take them four wheeling because they're not going to like that. But yeah, I need to get out. We've had 170 series here. trying to think. I think it was back late last summer, maybe early fall. It was one out of the UAE, and then it went to like Moldova, and the guy bought it in Romania and then shipped it here, and he just wanted us to give it a quick look over because he was moving to Idaho. So we just gave it a quick once over. I haven't really done any work on them. I really want one. My dream truck is a four-door utility bed 70 series. I've ridden around in them down in South and Central America, but yeah, I haven't had much of a chance to work on them. We've got a couple of guys with like diesel 45 pickups that come through here, and a couple of diesel 40s, but we don't see the 70 series much. I need a 70 series. I keep threatening my wife that I'm going to have a midlife crisis and order a 70 series, from somewhere and bring it in. But she's not really down with that idea. Um, she wasn't really happy. I told her I was going to have a midlife crisis tonight. I've been watching a machinery auction that's close to here, and there's a bunch of equipment that I want to bid on. Um, and she's out of town, so I might go bid on equipment. Um, but we'll see. I don't really have the room in the shop, but it would be fun. Yeah, we were down in Nicaragua a couple of months ago, and all the ambulances were 70 series. Um, and yeah, I really want one. That is definitely high on my list of dream vehicles. Excuse me. Yeah, I haven't driven a 70 series with the 1HD in it, but I've driven an 80 series with that motor. Man, that was nice. Uh, and it was a beautiful truck. Like it was I want to say it was like a 91, but like the interior looked like nobody had ever sat in it. It looked like showroom beautiful stock. Um, yeah, it was an awesome truck. I need a diesel cruiser. Was it red and silver? Because that was Schmuckster down from PA. If it's the one I think it was, because I know Schmuckster went down to Relic Run, and that's the truck I was talking about having driven. He brought it down for some work before they drove it out to Colorado last year. I think that was Relic Run they were going to. There was a guy with a cool. I think it was a 60 with like a Mitsubishi diesel in it. He stopped by. A bunch of them stopped by here on their way down to group up to Caravan. Yeah, so if it was the silver and red one, that's Schmuckster. That truck's awesome. Yeah, because I think he went down. Crusha was in that group in his 80 series. We were finishing that one up and test driving it like the day before he picked it up to trailer it down to Relic Run. And I think the guy with the diesel 60 was Pacer. I'm not a super fan of the electric cooling fans in place of the mechanicals. I've seen people do it a couple of times, especially on 40 series, and they never seem to move the volume of air that a properly functioning mechanical fan will. The only reason I can see doing it is if you're doing some crazy engine swap and you don't have the room for the mechanical fan and you have to shortchange it and use an electric. But if you can keep the mechanical fan, that's definitely the way I would go. They just seem to move a lot more air. The ones I've seen that have the electric ones in them, they always seem to be just right on the edge of overheating when you've got them idling. Yeah, Schmuckster's truck is way too clean. No problem. Yeah, Schmuckster has a bunch of cool cruisers and a bunch of parts. His shop at his house is like some kind of crazy cruiser parts store. And he's got like everything is tagged and he knows exactly where everything is, which is crazy because like he's really old and shouldn't be able to remember things like that. And that was just in case he actually watches this, because he knows I have to give him grief. I don't know how I feel about the Tundras. My dad's had a bunch of them. He's had a couple of the 4.7s, and he's got like a 2016 now with the 5.7. Like, it's a great truck. Like, I borrow it to go to Home Depot and pick up big, heavy stuff. I'm short, so I have trouble seeing out of it. I don't like driving them. but they seem to be good, solid trucks. Um, they you can put tons of miles on them. Dad's been happy with his. Um, I don't think they're as rugged as an 80 series, but yeah, they're good trucks. Just watch out for rust if you're getting like an early to mid 2000s one. We've had a couple come through here that have had to be scrapped because the frames were so far gone. Yeah, the camper on the back, definitely would be easier with the truck. A buddy of mine just built an 87 pickup into a camper, and he's been working on it. It's coming out pretty cool. And no problem on the chats. They're fun. Um, it's fun seeing what other people are working on and just seeing what other people are doing. That said, I'm probably going to jump off of here pretty soon so I can go home and let the dogs out. Because I took lunch early today to go grab parts, so they've been home alone for quite a while. But yeah, I like doing the chats. Not a whole lot of people are tuning into them, but they're fun anyway. Yeah, the cruisers, they're not that bad to work on. I mean, there's some oddball stuff, which is why we've been trying to do videos um, like that cover the weird pitfalls you could run into. But all in all, they're easy to work on and maintain. And compared to a lot of the stuff out there, they don't take as many like specialty service tools. Um, as like trying to maintain like something German or even something American, especially the newer stuff. So yeah, I much prefer working on Land Cruisers to anything else. Cool. Well, I'm gonna jump off of here for now, but I hopefully will be back next Tuesday. I don't think I have anything scheduled in this time slot, so I'll put up a placeholder as soon as I know for sure that we'll be back, and I'll catch you guys later. Thanks for tuning in.